Hello everyone. Today we are going to continue our conversation about trigonometry ratio, and today we are going to use a ratio to solve some application problems here. So the scenario can be look like this. As you can see in front of you, there is a ladder against the wall. And you can imagine this is actually a ladder against the wall of the house. And we don't know the height of the house. But instead of to measure it, we can easily do this kind of thing. Once I lean the ladder against the wall, we know this angle is actually about 80 degrees. And we also know the length of the ladder, which is 15 feet. So now, instead of measuring actually the height of the house, we can just use trigonometry ratio to find the answer. So today, we are going to work on this kind of the scenario, work on this kind of question. Then how do we do it? Let's see the first example. So the first example given us is we have a triangle here, and we know one of the angle is 50 degree. As the question mentioned, we need to find the length of AC. So this is one we need to work on. And since AC is one we need to know, we need to work on, then we can just simply label this as X, represent is a variable we need to find out. So when we work on this trigonometry ratio, I need to remind you, these are the steps will help us to solve the problem. So I strongly suggest you can either take down the notes or just simply label the bulletin points in your notebook to remind you what are the things we need to do to help you to find this answer. So, and also whenever we work on the right triangle trigonometry ratio, the very first thing we need to know, we need to work on is to label three sides. And as we mentioned before, when we label, we always need to know which angle we are going to use, because different angle, different answer, different position for these three sides, and most likely two sides. And so since the angle is given is 50 degrees, so that will be the one we are going to use to label. Let's check. So as we mentioned, always cross the arrow. So that one pointed as X, which means this is the opposite. And 90 degree cross at 6, which is the longest one. It's going to be hypotenuse. And the rest part is our adjacent. So please make sure we label three sides correctly. Otherwise, you might get you might get the wrong answer here. So let's check. So next are very important questions we are going to ask ourselves to set up the equation. So what are the questions we are going to see? First is which side we are looking for. We know this side AC is the one we are looking for, but this one is opposite. So the opposite is the one we are looking for. And which side we know the length of. We know AB is the one we know, which is hypotenuse. So now think about this question. We have three ratios here, as we mentioned before. This is how we remember the three ratio, which is SOHCAHTOA. And which one is actually talking about opposite and hypotenuse? Clearly, the answer is sine, right? So remind you, this is sine. This is the name of the ratio. So some students, whenever they set up equation, they always write down SOH, which is wrong. So now it's equation time. So as we mentioned, when we set up the ratio, we always write down the name of ratio, which is in this case is sine, and then follow the angle. In this case is 50 degrees. This is angle we know. Equals opposite over hypotenuse, which is x, which is opposite, over hypotenuse, which is 6. See? Now we can solve this equation. Some students might say sine 50 is that sine times 50 is not. Remember, sine is a neighbor ratio. So later we are going to treat this as a whole value, and we are going to find out this value. So what we need to do is, since we have fraction here, we can just simply do over 1. So once we have two fractions here, some students already figure out. We are going to use, yes, you're right, cross multiplication to solve it. So which is x times 1, x, sine 50 times 6. So I strongly suggest you to always put a number in front of the ratio. In that case, you can avoid, typing the wrong answer in the calculator. So now we just need to use a calculator. So you can go to online to just click or typing online calculator. This is something you are going to see. This is a screen you are going to see. So what we need to do is we're going to type whatever we have here to type it in. But one thing I want to remind you, please always make sure the degree is not in gray. So this DEJ stands for degree. This RAD stands for radian, which is something you are going to learn in the future. But since the unit for the angle here is degree, so please make sure this one is in gray. That means degree is chosen. So now we are going to type whatever we saw before is 6 times sine 50. So 6 times sine. So they already have parentheses, 50, close parentheses, and enter. As you can see, the answer is 4.596. Such a long number here, we are not going to write all. We can just simply so the way we type this is going to be 6 times whatever you have here, and then we can run the answer. If the original question here says to the nearest 10th, so let's check. This value here is 4.59, and the 10th is actually at the position of 5. So I can write down the answer to remind you how to. So the answer before is 596. 10th is one we are going to look for this. 10th is a position for 5, so that's why next number is 9. We are going to round it up, so that's why the answer is 4. I can write down here 4.6. That will be our answer. So do not forget to round your answer. So one thing I want to remind you, please make sure the DEG is chosen. So if you use graphing calculator, if you do have a graphing calculator, please make sure you choose the degree. If you have questions regarding how to set it up, I can definitely record another video to show you. But just to remember, the degree is very important. I can even show you. If I chose, for example, some students forget to set it up, this one, didn't set up as degree, so I still type the same thing, 6 times sine 50. As you can see, the answer is quite different. So that's why if you use a different unit, you will end up probably wrong answer. But one thing you can tell yourself is, we are talking about the length of the side. If you get negative answer, definitely something wrong. So you can use that call to remind you how to set it up for this one. Okay, so that's one thing. That's one example I want to remind you. Do not forget to always round it up your answer based on whatever the question they ask you for this case. Okay, so that's the first example. In the next video, we are going to practice another question. Is more like real life question here. So I will see you all later in the next video very soon.